Hey everybody, it's Professor Noctis, and wow, Capcom absolutely blew me away at Summer Game Fest Play Days. I went in excited, but I left kind of obsessed with these 3 games that they showed. From historical swordplay to this brainy space combat that we're going to get into, to straight up return to survival horror. Capcom showed us the full range of what they are capable of. So I got time with 3 major titles, watching 2 of them and actually playing 1 of them, so let's break it down now. Let's start with Onimusha, Way of the Sword. Now, I have never played an Onimusha game. I am really excited to talk about this though, because just for my 30 minutes with it, I was hooked. This is an action game set in 1600s Japan. The game revolves around the journeys of Musashi and uses actual history and locations as the backdrop for his adventure. In fact, the temple shown in the gameplay, this was so cool, was carefully crafted alongside experts and temple staff to rebuild and accurately depict what the ruins would have looked like back in the 17th century Kyoto, Japan. Just an incredible attention to detail, and a guy like me into history and archaeology, A+. So the game's story, though rooted in history and folklore, is told through fantastical elements. There's this thing in the sky called malice. It's like depicted by red clouds, and it's essentially an aura created by demons that they call Genma. To understand the Genma's impact, however, past events can be recalled by encountering a black mass. These are kind of black portals or orbs that you encounter, and they are like malevolent auras that are concentrated in one area. When you interact with them, you get to play through or see a cutscene of something that happened in the past, a flashback to explain some of the context of what you're doing. Now, this was the coolest part to me because in actual folklore, bodies were found around certain Kyoto temples, with actual scholarship on the folklore inconclusive as to why they were there. So the devs tied this into the game by having a dark mass explore how the Genma were convincing people to sacrifice villagers and family members. Now, we watched a cutscene of individuals mournfully tossing their loved ones off the side of the temple cliffs. And this kind of gave a historical nod and a fantastical spin as to maybe why this sort of thing happened, and maybe an answer to some of the things that archaeology has left kind of ambiguous to us. Anyway, I adored this. Can't wait to use it in class. The gameplay itself, though, was smooth, and the swordplay looked elegant and engaging. There was omnidirectional blocking, which allowed Musashi to take on multiple enemies from every angle. Just really, really cool. This preview launched the game into my most anticipated games for 2026. I cannot wait to get into this world. It's going to be my first Onimusha, too, so really excited. And if that were not compelling enough, we went from feudal Japan to futuristic space stations. So let's talk about Pragmata. Pragmata is a sci-fi action-adventure shooter originally announced in 2020 for a 2022 release date, but now it is officially slated for 2026. So, in addition to a thrilling and enticing trailer, I got to play about 20 minutes of this game and I was hooked. Now, I've got to be honest, I am a little tired of space shooters. I feel like the market is pretty saturated with that sort of thing. But that said, Pragmata offers a refreshing and compelling spin on the genre. During the gameplay, I was accompanied by a human-like android named Diana. I explored what appeared to be a space station with massive security, and as I tried to find my way through the station, maybe escaping and trying to get out of here, I was attacked by robots with heavy armor, and here is where it got interesting. While I dodged and hovered and attacked in a classic shooter style, I also simultaneously controlled Diana on my back to hack into the armor system. So, with my left hand, I'm playing through and I'm moving my character, dodging attacks and floating and hovering and all kinds of stuff. But with my right hand, I'm using the face buttons on the controller to control a cursor on a 3x3 or 4x4 or a 5x5 square grid, using these buttons as directionals to try to get through a maze toward a goal, basically. Once my cursor hits the goal, the armor on the enemy that I'm fighting is deactivated. Now, if this sounds complex, it kind of is, but weirdly, it's using my entire brain. Okay, there's survivalist mentality and the mechanics there, but then also this hacker mentality and mechanic. I thought it was really, really cool. Could not get enough of it. This gameplay had a variety of mechanics with optional buffs and debuffs along the hacker code path that you could collect along the way to impact the actual battle that's happening. What I loved about all of this is that battles felt like they engaged, like I said, my entire brain, surviving and hacking simultaneously. It was insane and I loved it. And I'm sure that the puzzles in the gameplay are going to increase in complexity and difficulty, because at the end of that demo, there was a fight that initiated with a huge robot that looked like it could get pretty complex, with maybe multiple nodes to assess and to try to hack through to really disable the armor. I was excited to face him, but on time, this prompted a Capcom representative to tap my shoulder and tell me that was the end of my play session. So dang it, what a cliffhanger, but they got me hooked. So in any case, excited for Pragmata, which is going to release in 2026. Now let's get to the big one, the one that everybody was talking about, the crown jewel of survival horror, Resident Evil 9 Requiem. The trailer blew us away in the Summer Game Fest presentation, but Capcom offered a 30-minute showcase of gameplay, and it was amazing. You've probably seen some of the reactions on social media, and it was mind-blowing. Just a return to the best things about this series. At the outset of the showcase, they explained that the theme of the game is addicting fear, and I can see why. I was hooked from the first scene, and I could not wait to see more. A little bit of background in this. In this game, we will play as Grace Ashcroft, the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from the Resident Evil Outbreak series. Grace is timid, she has little combat experience, and this is going to make her vulnerable and fragile as a protagonist. Now this is perfect for a return to the fear-based roots of Resident Evil, the types of Resident Evil that I really loved and grew up on. This demonstration started out with Grace in some large house, you don't really know where, strapped to a medical bed upside down, arms and legs and torso kind of strapped in. And she's hooked to an IV drip. She escapes through a particularly intense experience where she knocks over the setup and uses the broken glass to free herself from her bonds. Then, unarmed, she ventures through the manor. Now, this is where typical Resident Evil gameplay began to ensue. You're finding fuses for electricity, specific keys for doors, tools for exploration, gotta find that screwdriver in the toolbox to open up the case, and so on and so forth, that sort of thing. But the first thing that I noticed about this game was the enhanced realism. Aside from the graphics, which were impressive, my biggest note through the entire presentation was the insane level of tension in the sound design. The sound really carried the eerie, ominous aura of the entire showcase. The silence, the creaky footsteps, was that a door behind me that just slammed? No, it was just my imagination. That whole thing really coming to the surface throughout the entire showcase. Add on to that Grace's heavy breathing. Props to whoever the voice actor was that just breathed into the microphone, just non-stop. I mean, it was like anxiety producing, it was stressed, it was labored. The breathing may have added more anxiety than anything else in the game. None of the monsters compared to just like my heart in my throat during Grace's labored breathing. I'm going way too long about the breathing, but just know it was incredible. Okay, so the demo offered two surprises that are going to really delight Resident Evil fans. First, about halfway through the experience, a giant mutated monster with shackles begins to hunt Grace down, almost in like a Nemesis style. Now, in addition to that sort of stalking and hunting, which Resident Evil 3 fans really came to know and love, what may be interesting is the potential allusion to the Resident Evil 1 and Umbrella Chronicles alum Lisa Trevor. Whether it's actually her or not, I can't really confirm, but this monster stalking added a whole new layer to an already tense experience. I absolutely loved it. And if it is Lisa, oh my gosh, just the layers and layers of story in this game. It's gonna be great. Finally, and probably the thing that's going to delight us the most, is the final shot of the gameplay showcase. The gameplay stopped and the camera perspective shifted, announcing that Resident Evil 9 Requiem can indeed be played entirely in first or third person perspective. And let me tell you, the crowd cheered when that happened. I have more to say about how this perspective will impact our brain's memory formation to the game later, but this was a very welcome inclusion as evidenced by the crowd reaction. What I can say wholeheartedly is this: classic Resident Evil fear is back, and it's never been better. We don't have to wait too long because the game releases in 2026. So, Capcom's showcase at Playdays anchored all of Summer Game Fest for me. Combining compelling elements of reconstructed history, dynamic gameplay, and psychological horror, Capcom is trying new things in 2026 that has my full attention. Let me know in the comments which game you're most excited for, and don't forget to like and subscribe because I'll be covering all three of these the second that I get my hands on them. Until then, walk tall, my friends, and we'll see you next time.